Hello, and welcome to the Other Minds podcast. I'm Joseph Bohigian. That was an excerpt of Rossby Waving by our guest today, Mari Kimura. Other Minds, founded in 1993 in San Francisco by Charles Amirkhanian and Jim Newman, is devoted to championing the most original voices in new and experimental music. On this season of the podcast, we're talking with the featured composers from our 26th Other Minds Festival, which will take place on October 13th to 15th, 2022 at the Great Star Theater in San Francisco. Today, I'm here with Mari Kimura. Mari is a violinist, composer, and a leading figure in interactive computer music. Mari is world-renowned for subharmonics, the production of pitches that sound up to an octave below the violin's lowest string, and her dynamic performances and as an improviser. She received numerous awards, including a Guggenheim Fellowship, Fromm Award, a Residency Award at IRCAM, and the grant from Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Mari is a professor of music at UC Irvine and at the Juilliard School. She developed a motion sensor system, MUGIC, and received the Certificate of Recognition from the House of Representatives and the California State Assembly as an entrepreneur. Welcome, Mari.
Hey, Joey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I want to start off by asking you about your MUGIC sensor, which stands for Music User Gesture Interface Control. What sparked your idea to create this sensor? You had already been very involved with using music technology in your performances, so did the MUGIC fill a need that you had in your own performance practice?
So this was a long time in making, started from around 2007 or so. I was on the paper jury for NIME, the new interface for musical expression. And I was reading a bunch of papers, and one of them was from IRCAM. Now it's called the Sound Music Motion Team. It used to be a real-time interaction team. And they had a paper about this motion sensor system, what's called augmented violin system. And I thought, oh, this is very interesting because until then, the motion sensor was about Wii remote that, you have to be in some kind of an area, or a Kinect which you also have to be in the area, or the video tracking from above or whatever. So you're pretty much confined in the area that the machine can see you, or the, angle that you have to be in, and so on and so forth. And that's one thing. And next thing is that it takes just too much setup. And I'm just one person operation with no money. So I always wanted to be small, compact as possible. So this system from Earcom team seemed very good to me. Oh, okay, so you do as you do. You are a violin or anything like that. And then a bunch of PhD big brains can analyze what I'm doing. So this sounded good to me. So I wrote to them and said, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Could I borrow one? And back then it was only gyroscope and accelerometer, no magnetometer. So it was XB sensor, it's called XB. And it was attached to the bow. They had a prototype that was attached to the bow, and I said, "No way! You're not going to put it on my my French bow. So no way you're going to modify anything." So then I thought to myself, "Okay, so if it's attached to the bow, it's right here, right next to my hand that's holding the bow. So how if I move the sensor away from the bow and put it on my hand?" So I did that, and I put it in. I had a, I had a little, makeshift glove that had the Velcro all over the place, and I put the sensor all over the place and see where it's the best. And it turned out that the bottom of my index finger, which is right next to the bow, inside, was the most accurate place. And then later turned out that it doesn't matter. It can be on the top of my hand, the bottom of my index finger. It's practically the same data. So I moved it off the bow and then put it in my hand. So that was my first prototype. So I was performing like that for quite a while, and then became sort of one of my tools, interactive tools. Up until then, I was only using pitch tracking. So then it was a pitch tracking and the motion, right? So that really worked out well. The things that I don't need pitch tracking to do something, I could do with emotion. and it was more accurately transmitting the kind of expression that I want to communicate with the computer. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. And I still use pitch or amplitude information in tandem with a sensor. So, and not too much though. I'm kind of moving away from pitch tracking a lot these days to just go with emotion because it's technically much simpler, right? I don't even need an audio input in some cases. So, in many cases today, when I work with other artists, I write for someone else. Usually, now I don't even use the audio input to interact with someone. Sometimes I just use audio samples, like what we're going to talk about, Kismet, the piece I wrote for your ensemble. So I was at EARCOM in 2010 to work with the team extensively, and that's where the research came about that I want to really pursue this. And then around 2013, I started summer program in Maine at Waterville, the Colby College called Atlantic Music Center. I had a sort of a boutique little program called the Future Music Lab, where I would invite performer composers like myself, young artists who want to experiment with interactive technology, who might not have any background in Max or anything like that. But in 1 month, I would start with a boot camp, and at the end, they created an interactive work with a motion sensor and stuff like that. So I've been doing this for quite a while. We are doing it this year also. And in the course of that, around 2015, the world moved on to 9-axis sensor, adding the magnetometer. So now it's a 9-axis sensor. So Aiyun was also making their prototype, but I just wanted to, you know, get going. So I had a collaborator who just, soldered together the commercially available Adafruit, the Feather one. So I was using that, Arduino just off the internet, and I was performing that for quite a while. Then in 2017, I was appointed at UCI, and I just, it was taking a lot of money. I mean, you can just buy them and do it yourself, but then I get this request like, oh, can I have one? Can I have four? It's like, I can't keep up. I was asked one of the PhD students from computer science here at UCI to make it for me, but he had to make these for my class. I have a seminar I started in 2017, composing with sensors. Right, every fall I have this, and I do a festival in January, the culmination of that class. So that's like several sensors plus mine, plus all the requests, and I just decided this is untenable, and also all that bulky stuff, has a sensor, battery, and a Wi-Fi, like a 3 units, and I was taping together with electric tape, and it was so awful, bad looking, too big. And I'm not an electric engineer. I would touch something that I'm not supposed to, and sometimes the shortest, like, Mari, why did you? What do I know? I touched in the wrong way. So musicians don't have to worry about that, right? Because I suffered on behalf of everybody. so, so I decided I wanted a unit that's much smaller, that's encased in a box, and switch on and off, and basically out the box turnkey that people can have. And that's my impetus of creating my own. Anyway, long answer to your short question.
No, that's great. So you'll be playing your piece, Rossby Waving, at the Other Minds Festival in October. What parameters are you measuring with the MUGIC in that piece, and how is that translating to the sound?
So what I was talking about, my work with EARCOM, first thing that we discussed is, so Mari, what would you like to do with us? So I thought about it, and I thought, well, violin is the violin because you sustain, right? It's not a pluck instrument or, hitting instrument or anything like that. So I asked them, can you tell when I'm playing, like, sustaining? And they're like thinking about that. Of course we can. So, but it didn't occur to them to use it that way. And whenever I work with the engineers, not only EARCOM but anywhere, I ask them, "Can you do this?" And they say, "Huh." And I say, "Of course we can." So I mean, we're at the age that we go to Mars or whatever. So technology is all there, but the direction or the things that you want to do, I think comes from artists who are users, who has the imagination to go somewhere. So I always tell all the companies, tech companies, is you have to hire artists because, because all the music industry companies, they make everything that because they can, not because you need it. So the products will come and go so quickly because there's no user, no purpose for it. So this sustaining motion has been very important to me ever since then. So Rossby Waving using that, and also very simply energy, which means if I move fast, there's a energy and there's no energy, and so like or tremolo or something like that. So there's that, and I believe I'm using the direction with motion sensor has yaw, pitch, and roll motions, right? So yaw can detect whether I'm playing a down bow or up bow, correct? Because I'm going left or right. So I often use this to, okay, when I do the down bow, do this, or up bow, do this, or in combination of above, like when I'm going down bow and sustain this much, then da da, or I did a down bow, then energy, then that means that. So just with this even 3 or 4 very simple actions, you have so many varieties of controls that you can interact with. So those are the 3 main interactions I'm using in Rossby Waving.
And is the visual element especially important? Because this is an audio medium. People can't see the motions you're making right now, but we'll post a video so they can see some of you playing with the MUGIC. But is seeing that connection between the movements that you're making and the sounds that the audience is hearing important to the performance?
I think the people do get the live performance is a live performance because people can see you moving, right? No offense to a laptop ensemble, but you can't really see what you're doing on the laptop. But when you're standing in front of people with a violin, you can actually see your right arm waving, moving. So I think there is a connection in a perception wise from the audience that she's doing this and that's why it's happening and stuff like that. Yes.
Great. Well, let's listen now to an excerpt of Rossby Waving for a MUGIC sensor and violin performed by Mari Kimura. So you've written a lot of pieces for MUGIC for yourself to perform, but you've also written quite a bit for others to play, and other musicians have taken the MUGIC on their own independently of you and created their own projects. So what do you like about teaching people how to use the MUGIC, and what are some of the most unexpected things that people have come up with on their own?
Yes, so this has been such a mind-opening, eye-opening experience. You just give artists a device and they do things with it. And I like to always refer to our first artist in the cave, caveman. Caveman. Caveman has a little, chalk or something and draw, right? So if you give anybody a tool, people do so many different things with it. And that has been always my inspiration that inspired me, actually, my own work. So, as I mentioned, I've been having this program in Maine every summer since 2013, a Future Music Lab. And every year I had 4 or 5 or more students who've been working on it. And I just realized that I covered exactly all the orchestra instruments, with the music, combined with some student Juilliard and UCI. I covered everything. I mean, there's no instrument that, maybe tuba. I have not had tuba, but yeah, it's been very eye-opening. It was just wonderful. Recently, the visual artists started to use it, and that was very unexpected. Painter put a music on the hand and painted with it to track the brush movements or something. Another one, installation artist. Oh my gosh, this one is a little shocking to me because she required waterproofing. And I said, no, I don't. You can't put it in the water. Actually, several people asking if music is waterproof. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to make this thing waterproof. So one artist, installation artist, is doing a project on the river, and she's gonna put the music in a Ziploc bag and put it on a buoy in the river and interact with the motion, the water motion, and connect it with a sound system or something. It's like totally cool, but oh my gosh, yeah, that gives me nightmares. Just shorting and but anyway, yeah, so there's some really unexpected use of music, not only now musicians, but also dancer and theater, mime. It's just expanding in a direction that I never thought of.
Yeah, that's so great that it's taking on its own life. You wrote your piece Kismet for Ensemble Decipher last year in 2021. And as you mentioned, full disclosure, I am a member of this ensemble. Can you tell us about that piece? And we'll post a video in addition to playing the recording, but it's a very visual and physical piece coming out of having no concerts during the pandemic, right? This was maybe one of your first live performances since the pandemic started in the summer of 2021.
Yes, so it was for New Music for String festival organized by Anne-Sophie Andersen in Aarhus, Denmark. And that was, as you said, my first coming out of COVID international performance with your group. And so, and Sophie said, "Well, can you write a piece for Decipher?" And we never met before, and I looked at your work, and I thought, okay, so you guys are a laptop ensemble. But after all this Zoom life, I didn't want one more minute of you guys facing the computers. So I thought, we're all going to be in person in one place, and I want you to actually move. How do I do that? So then I think it was that summer, earlier in the summer. I had already, you guys sent me your sound samples, right? So I was kind of experimenting with a lot of things, and I thought, okay, there are like, several young people. How can they use the music? I should put in something so they can pass it around or even throw things. I had this brilliant idea of putting on a frisbee, right? So I have a little video that is experimenting, put the music sensor in the middle of the frisbee and throwing it around, and I was testing with MIDI, piano sound, something like that, and it was very, very funny. Except that I'm such a bad thrower of anything, and I would hit the table or something like that, and I thought to myself, okay, so this is going to be in Denmark, in a beautiful concert space, and how if they miss the mark and hit the audience in the head or the light fixed or the microphone? This is a bad idea. So then I moved on to I looked at my kids' old plush animal. I love plush animal that they didn't have a heart to throw it away. So I have a lot of plush animal in New York apartments. I put the sensor in the plush, whatever, angry orange or whatever that was. And I was throwing them around in the apartment, and it was great. It was wonderful. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna bring the plush animal with me to Denmark. Then what happened was the sensor has a lithium battery, and the plush toys are insulated, so it heats a lot, and it got really hot. And I said, "Oh my God, this is a fire hazard. It's not gonna work." So that plush animal was gone, and then I was looking at my dog, and she had this rubber toy that was completely like a mesh rubber thing. And I said, okay, so I can put this inside the dog chew toy, and I can access it, I can charge it, and it doesn't heat. This is perfect, right? So that's how it became a dog chew toy piece. Kismet is a dog chew toy that a Decipher member throw it around. You can, roll it or, throw it, and it's a rubber, so it's safe. Even if it hits the audience, it doesn't kill them. So, so yes, in one of our performances in New York that we did in Brooklyn, the Decipher members are running around, around the audience and throwing them around. And I just love the way you guys just lit up. They're all smiling, and I did in Toronto again, and the students are a huge grin on their face. It just make my day. It made me so happy.
Yeah, it's definitely a very fun piece to play, and I think fun for people to watch. People always come up after and comment about how, how fun it looked like we were having when we were playing that piece. And I, for one, am glad that it was not a frisbee because I'm bad at throwing frisbees. So I'm very glad that it's the dog toy.
That's right.
Great. Well, let's listen now to an excerpt of Kismet performed by Mari Kimura and Ensemble Decipher. So you've been working on a collaboration recently with percussionist Aiyun Huang. Can you tell us about that new project?
Yes, I met Aiyun Huang because of people like you, one of my students. I had several percussion students at Atlantic Music Center as well as at Juilliard. I was like, do you know Aiyun Huang? You should meet her. So that was sort of a culmination of all that. And finally, I met her and I played with her, and I thought we clicked really well, and I'm so inspired by the breadth of expression she has. And of course, I wanted to write for her, so we started this project in the middle of the pandemic. And I wrote her a first piece called Iron Bird, which is a piece for a music sensor and a cymbal, one cymbal. So I just wanted her to see what she can do with a cymbal. And she's also a theater person. She has a dramatic experience. So the kind of movement she makes with her hands just is so expressive. And this goes to what I was talking about before, about not having audio input. Because she was in Toronto, I was stuck in California during the pandemic. I didn't really have a chance to use audio of processing and all that. And I thought it's going to be difficult for her to set that up over there because, of course, she's also in isolation. So, in order to have that happening in her class with the students around and so on. So I decided, okay, so send me all the strokes that you can possibly make with a cymbal. So she sent me the gigantic library of sounds that she makes. And that is actually when I started to use samples instead of audio, live processing, which I have been doing ever since I got into interactive music. Okay, so I'm just going to use samples, and all she needs to have is a sensor, and if you must, it's just a audio out from your computer, and that's all she needs. She doesn't need anything else, and she can do interactive performance, and that is just as well. And you have more control over, of course, the sound because you're just playing with the samples, not the real audio. So no spikes or audio level problems and any of that. So that is when I started to just play with audio samples. So that was our first experience, and then that got performed, remote live in a Nebula festival in Italy, and in a Vancouver Electronic Music Festival. I'm sorry, Contemporary Music Festival, I think. So it's been played a lot, and also in New York and elsewhere. So then I thought, okay, she should write for me, and I should write for her as a duo. I wanted to play with her, really. So that's when our, collaborative life really took place. In fact, I just had a Zoom meeting with her and a composer in Iceland. So Aiyun and I are still discussing our future projects right now quite intensively and planning a future performance together in different continents and countries.
So is that what you were working on your recent trip to Toronto, right? You were there earlier this year?
Yes, we made sort of a exchange thing that she comes to California and I go to Toronto. So we recorded our duo pieces that we wrote for each other also during the pandemic. And, we transfer files and, played together. And in Toronto, we did that. And also I gave several lectures and lessons.
Let's listen now to an excerpt of Iron Bird by Mari Kimura, performed by Aiyun Huang. You can hear Mari Kimura perform at Other Minds Festival 26 on October 13th, 2022 at the Great Star Theater in San Francisco. Thank you, Mari, for talking with me today, and thanks everyone for listening. This has been another episode of the Other Minds podcast, brought to you by Other Minds. Our 26th festival is October 13th through 15th, 2022 at the Great Star Theater in San Francisco. Join us again next week.